good summary. So I am going to attempt to use the Kensington presenter. Hopefully it doesn't lock up my computer. So when you think about influencing, what do you think about? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you're trying to affect some kind of outcome or action?
Like an impression?
Yes, talking to people, making an impression. So people talk about it's being in the room at that point in time and talking with someone. They've got a point of view, you've got your point of view, and you're trying to convince them to take some kind of action or outcome. So what I'm going to be talking about today is, yeah, we're going to talk about being in the room with that person and using your influencing tactics, but we're also going to be talking about everything up until that point in time. So building up your reputation, building up your influencing capital, so that when you're in the room with that person, they're going to be much more receptive to what you have to say. But before we get there, as developers and product managers and product development people, what's the main purpose? Why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve when we're trying to influence people? Yeah?
Make their lives better.
Yeah, to make their lives better, the people we're trying to influence. Yeah, that's a good point.
Make yourself look better.
Yes, too. True, too. But in terms of product development, what do you want?
To agree to your feature requests.
Yes. We want them to agree to our feature request for what we think is the best way to build this product to make great products that people love. So a lot of the time we're working with large organizations or large corporates. There's a lot of different viewpoints, a lot of different things that all these people that we're working with, whether it's the senior managers, other product teams, your own internal team, there's different driving factors behind why they're doing and what things they're trying to achieve and why they may not agree with what you want to do. They might be driven by careerism or risk aversion or just getting their next bonus. And they don't care about what type of feature. They don't give a fuck about your app, as per Jerry's talk. And that's the case, right? So what we're going to be talking about today is how can we get them in line with us? How can we get their motivation in line with our motivation in order to build the products that we like the most? So major pains. So major pains behind not influencing well. One of the biggest things that happen is we will lose time and we will lose money. So if you think about something like you might have got the product to a certain point in time and you need to get access to a test environment. If you don't get that access straight away, you're going to lose time. Now that time is complete 100% waste. It's longer time to get your product out to market, longer time to get customer feedback back in, and longer time to then iterate on your product and make it better. The other side of things is building the wrong product straight up. So what here we've got is a fish. So this is a fish wearing a life jacket. Now sure, there's plenty of fish in the sea. None of them have life jackets currently, and I'm sure there's someone out there that thinks that that's a great idea. But you might not think that's the actual case, and you don't want to go off and build a product that's going to be a complete waste of time. So that's where influencing comes in. So from the gains perspective, a lot of the time when we talk about influencing and achieving a specific outcome, you can think of a famous person in the media at the moment is Trump. He talks about winners and losers. Whenever he talks about trade and negotiating and influencing, he's talking about one country being a winner, i.e. America, and the other countries being losers. Now that's not good influencing. Good influencing is where everyone are winners. Where you go in, it's not about getting your way, it's about ensuring that everyone in the room sees the same way that you see things, or at least has some kind of benefit from the end of the negotiation or the process that you want to, the outcome that you want to get in the end. So when we're talking about that, it's your own development team, it's other product teams. So we've got the traffic light up there representing the other product teams. So these are teams that are not necessarily going to be aligned with you. They might be building a different product entirely, and they have access to the same resources, which is the next thing we have along there. These resources are getting pulled, these shared resources get pulled in all these different directions. And so you need to influence them to try and get what you need, while the other product teams are also trying to influence them to get what you need as well. It might be influencing the product itself. Lastly, the types of people we're going to be influencing as well are the executives. So that's the diamond behind us. So that's the people that are actually putting the money behind this, or the sponsors. Now, these people may not care about your product at all. They might just want to see it get out to market as soon as possible so they can tick off something on a list. So how can you get them across the line so that you can build a product that you know people love and not just something you can deliver in the next 2 weeks? So game plan, as far as influencing goes. So like I said before, it's not just about when you're in the room with someone and actually doing those types of tactics. It starts from the very beginning. So you've got hygiene. So these are the things that you should be doing all the time to build up your reputation and your influence and capital. Next is groundwork. So these are the types of things that you would do at a specific organization. So at a given organization, building up your relationships, building up your reputation, building up how people are going to perceive you at that specific organization. And lastly, it's the tactics. When you're actually standing in the room with someone, what are you going to do to get them across the line? So from a hygiene perspective, what we've got at the start is reputation. So reputation, people always say, well, how do I build up my reputation? So you can start off with doing things like meetups, writing blogs, building up your profile so that when you go somewhere, do they say, I don't know who this person is at all, or have they heard of you before and they have a preconceived idea of who you are? Now that works both ways. You can also have a bad reputation or a good reputation. Next up is communication. So a lot of the best example I've got for this is about communicating in a way that people are going to be able to hear what you have to say and like what you have to say as clearly as possible. A big part of that is communicating clearly and with clarity as quickly as possible. So often when I'm at work and I receive emails from people, I'll receive a whole long story about what they want to tell me, and then the very bottom, can you please do this? That's a terrible way to communicate. Now, a lot of the reasons why people do that is they feel they need to justify why they're sending an email to someone. Specifically, if they're sending an email to senior management. I've seen a lot of the times, someone's sending an email to the CEO of an organization, they write this big, long email because they feel that they're getting this chance to communicate to the senior leader. They need to justify why they're communicating there, write all the things they've done in the last 6 months. That person doesn't care. They just want to know, what do you want? When do you want to buy? And maybe, why do you want it? And why do you want it by a certain point in time? Any other information is completely unnecessary. Often if you think about, at the moment, if you receive an email from a very senior person at your organization, you usually receive like a one line. There's no hi this or hi that, and how's it going? One line, I need this, that's it, right? There's no reason that you can't communicate in the same way, and that will massively improve your ability to influence the people around you, specifically the senior people around you who don't have the time to spend reading that long-ass email. They won't want to hear from you again if they know that every time they receive an email from you, they're going to spend 20 minutes reading that email to try and figure out what it is that you want. Next up is mastery. So this is mastery from a hygiene perspective. So from a hygiene perspective, if you are a developer, do you know your shit? Do you understand your domain? If you're a product manager, which is what I wrote this talk for initially, do you understand the product lifecycle? Do you understand things like design thinking? Do you understand how to do your customer research right? How and when to decline your product? Do you have a concept of these types of terminology? Because if you don't, and you go into an organization with people that do, they will know that you don't know what you're talking about, and you will massively lose your reputation and your ability to influence them because they will perceive you as someone that doesn't know what they're talking about. Next up is confidence. So this is a real hard one. So people say, if I said to you, oh, just be more confident, people say, that doesn't make any sense at all. How do I be more confident? So the best story I have of this one is a senior person I used to work with. He was very senior in a very large organization. He had a couple of thousand people reported into him. And he was extremely confident about every single opinion that he had. He would just walk in, and his decisions had huge ramifications across the organization. And I used to go for coffee with him and have a chat with him. He sort of mentoring me in a few things. And I said, how are you so confident all the time with all the things that you say, given the amount of impact that it has? And oftentimes he was wrong as well. Well, at least I thought he was anyway. And he would say, I'm faking it. I'm faking my confidence. I'm faking what I have to say, but I need to do it so that people have the confidence in me and the opinion that I'm giving. So this is where people say, fake it till you make it. That's what they mean. And the till you make it part might never eventuate, and doesn't eventuate for most people. As they move up in the organization, they continue having to fake it. You will always be faking it. So as far as confidence goes, fake it till you make it. At the very least, build up your clarity and communication and build up your mastery. It's going to make it easier to do that type of thing anyway. And lastly is influencing style. So everyone has a different style in which they like to influence. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit more in a second. But as an example, your influencing style might be to use logic, so to use facts and figures to get people across the line. So I thought that that was my influencing style, and we're about to do an exercise that will show you, an exercise that I did myself that proved to me that my influencing style was not to use logic, but actually to use what's called like inspiration, so being really excited about something. Now, where this is important is if I'm dealing with someone who wants to hear logic and reasoning, and I'm sitting there saying how excited I am about this great new product, and then they say, no, I don't like what you have to say. They're expecting me to come back with some logic and reasoning to get them across the line. I come back with, I double down, which is my preference. And I start being, no, it's really amazing. You really need to get across the line on this one. It's not going to work at all. So influencing style is understanding your own influencing style and understanding your own preference, and also understanding the preference of others in order to be able to give them what they need to come across to your point of view. So what is your influencing style? So this is where I need all of you to be a bit more interactive. I'm going to walk you through the exercise. Unfortunately, we don't have paper and pen, so you're going to have to do this in your heads. So the first part of the exercise is you need to think of, in your heads, examples of where you have tried to influence someone. So got here, so what you were trying to achieve, who you were trying to influence, what did you do to influence them? So did you use facts and figures or some other method? And then what was the outcome? So ideally, if you can, think of two examples, one example where you were successful and one example where you are unsuccessful. And in the instance where you were unsuccessful and they first said to you, no, I don't agree with what you have to say, what did you then do to try and get them across the line? And most likely you doubled down on what you did initially. Now what you're going to do after that is you're going to pair up with someone and share with them what those examples were. And then the person who you're sharing with, your job will be to identify their influencing style. I'm not going to go to the next page yet, which will show all the different styles, because that will affect what you're going to say. So for now, think of some examples. You've got about a minute, and then you can pair up with the person next to them and give them your story. Cool. Go for it. All right. Hopefully you've all had a good discussion. You've got an idea of the other person's story. So now the next part of this is to identify the influencing style of the other person. So from influencing style perspectives, you have the scientist. So this is the data-driven person that I thought I was, apparently not. The negotiator. So they do trading, compromising. So they benefit from a bit of give and take. So negotiating, a lot of the time, if you're talking about people who are not aligned, who are working on different products, they're going to negotiate with each other. I'll give you this feature, you give me this test resource. Next is the politician. So this is the inspiration person. They've got the vision, they're excited, they lead by example. They focus on giving rewards to people to get them across the line. Next is the fighter. Now this is a positive fighter. So they're the person that they stand up for what they believe in, they're persistent. A lot of the time we all end up being the fighter in some way, shape or form. This is when we're asking someone to do something for us and they keep not doing it. We keep having to send them a reminder after reminder after reminder. You're taking the persona of the fighter. You're trying to fight to get them across the line. Next is the influencer. The networker. So these people focus on relationships. So they build relationships up and then use them. So they do influence by proxy. So influence by proxy is a great example. So we'll come across the villain in a second. This is the bad guy in the organization. If you've got the bad guy in the organization, you're going to want to influence by proxy. You're going to want to find someone who can tell them what to do and then build that relationship with them and use them to influence the villain. The other is invoking the relationship. We've got a great relationship, man. Come on, you can do this for me. Next, empathy, understanding where people are coming from. So this is really important, especially when you're working with your whole team. You really want to empathize with everyone in the team and what they're going through and have an understanding of what they're doing. That's a part of building a relationship anyway. And next up is the villain. So as the case goes, I'm sure we all experience the villain in every organization we go into. So these people, they use clandestine actions. So they lie to get what they want. They manipulate data or read data in the wrong way, but on purpose to try and get their point across. They use personal negative actions. So in that respect, a lot of people in the room might have done some kind of personal negative action. That might be somewhere where someone tells you to do something you don't want to do, so you specifically leave it till later or work extra slow or do not such a great job. You're actually being a bit of a villain there and using some personal negative action. And then administrative negative. So going to HR, using rules to try and get people across the line that are in a sort of a negative kind of way. That's the administrative negative action. And then lastly, just pure demanding. So telling someone, you have to do this, you have no choice about it. If you're doing that kind of thing, you're actually being the villain. Now, a big part of that as well, when we talk about, I meant to talk about it before, I'm trying to rush through the talk, it's usually 45 minutes, is the difference between positive influencing and negative influencing. Negative influencing, most of you would probably know what that is. When someone's using demanding or saying, I'm the boss, do what I say, they're using negative influencing. When you use negative influencing, you're decreasing your influencing capital. Because each time you do something negative like that, you're decreasing the likelihood that the people that you're being negative towards are going to be receptive in the future. As opposed to positive influencing, which pretty much everything else falls under positive, people, each time you do something like that, you're building up your influencing capital and also getting your point of view across the line. So you're actually putting yourself in a better position for the next time you need to affect some kind of outcome or action. So now I'll give you all 1 minute to have a chat with the person next to you, and based on their story, it's your job to tell them what you think their influencing style is, and they can just take that on, and then hopefully that will help them in the future. All right, so hopefully you've all got a good idea of your influencing style and can now use that to your advantage. So both to understand what you will double down on naturally, what other people's styles might be, you need to try and identify that, and then how you can adjust your style to suit their style and hopefully achieve the outcome that you want. So we spoke about hygiene. Now the next thing to speak about is groundwork. So I'm just going to rush through this really quick. So groundwork is what you do when you get to an actual organization. So the groundwork, there's 3 parts to groundwork. One is building up relationships. So it's building up relationships with people at that organization, which you can then work with as you go through the organization. Now, a big important part here is don't build relationships that you don't want to build anyway, right? When you're building relationships with someone, you're going for lunch, you're going for coffee, that's your free time, that's their free time. Don't build a relationship for the sake of influencing someone. Build a relationship because you want to build it, and build a relationship with people that you enjoy being around. And ultimately, you'll be able to work with them and hopefully affect the outcome that both of you want. A big thing to call out here as well is if you've identified someone in an organization who is a villain, do not build a relationship with them because there is no point. They will not, so how relationships generally work is, you know, we've got a relationship, I'll give you something, you give me something. The villain does not care. You can give them as much as you want and as much help and as much assistance as they need, and when when the time comes that you need something from them, they will not give it back to you unless there is some specific reason they're going to get something out of it. So I'm sure all of you know who the villains are, just don't spend time on them, it's not worth it. A big thing to call out as well with the villain, I'm going to call it out later as well, is you either need to go above them to someone that can influence them directly, or you need to go around them. Going at them head on with any of the other influencing styles, if they're a specific villain in the organization, none of them is going to work, right? They've got some ulterior motive that's driven by careerism of some kind of sort, and anything that you do, it's not going to work to get them across the line. They've decided that that's the path that they're going down, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Next up is reputation. So we spoke about reputation from a hygiene perspective, which is building up your general reputation, but now specifically it's your reputation at the organization. Now this one is really easy. So having your great reputation in an organization is really easy to build up really quickly. So for a start, there's obviously being trustworthy, being accountable, having good relationships with people, always being honest with people, obviously going to build up your general reputation. But one of the big things specifically for a lot of us working in product development or product management, things like that, is our ability to deliver. And when I say that, when someone says, this person's great, they can always deliver new products, new features. And if I said, okay, go to an organization and deliver quickly, you're going to say, well, it's going to take me a month at least to get something out the door. But delivering doesn't necessarily mean delivering products. You could just as easily go into an organization, and let's say you went to an organization and they were really bad at visualizing all the work they wanted to do, or visualizing the current state of the market, or what that current feature set was. You could just go up and visualize that for them. Put it up on a wall, and then just market it, essentially. So do something great, do something quick, and market it to everyone around you. That's going to build your reputation really quick. So I work in consulting. I'm constantly going out to new organizations every few months. One of the first things I'll do when I get there is identify something as quickly as possible, and within the first 2 to 3 days, I will have delivered that thing, whether it's a change to a process, a change to how things are done, delivering a talk like this to the organization, or visualizing something. I'll do it and I'll market it as quickly as possible. And then when people who maybe didn't know about me before now go, that's that guy that did this thing, it was awesome. So clearly the other things that the other things he has to say, we should probably listen to it. All right, so that's reputation. It's really easy. Lastly is mastery. So we spoke about mastery in your general job. Next is mastery of the actual organization. So this is something that you can do even before you apply for the job. And this is really important. This is going in and understanding what the organization is, what is their org structure, who are their competitors, what is the trends in their market, what problems are they actually facing, so that when you get to the organization, or you're even at your interview, and they're asking you about specific things to do with their organization, you can say, well, I've seen this type of problem or this new trend, and they'll say, wow, this person really understands what we're going through. This person really understands me and my organization. They're probably someone I want to be talking to. And that's going to massively build up your reputation. When you think about it, you can just read a couple of blogs, take you about an hour, and you've got a massive leg up over everyone else at that organization, including people that have been there for a really long time. Now, I don't have too much time. A great example I have of this is I've got a mate, she's working as a product manager at the moment, and the job that she's at currently, when she went to apply for that job and she was going into a completely different industry that she'd never worked in, she knew nothing about this industry. Absolutely, she was going from, she was in a legal background through to a retail car company, right? And what she did, she did all her research and she put together a business model for a number of features that they probably needed to build into their websites and mobile applications. And then in the interview, they started talking to her about all these different things, and somehow she managed to then bring up this business model she put together. This guy that was interviewing her was the chief operations officer of this organization. Turned to her and said, how did you find out about this? This is a secret conversation no one else knows about. I've only had this with the executive team. She said, well, I just did my research, and then I inferred that this is the type of thing that you want to do. So with this, she massively built up her reputation, obviously got the job there, and has accelerated through the ranks of that organization at lightning speed by doing her research up front and then being obviously confident in the interview and being able to show things in the interview just by doing a bit of research up front. And it's really easy. So that's groundwork. Now for influencing tactics. So these kind of match up to the personas as well. You've got the convincing, logic, and reasoning. So you either convince based on negotiation, so this is better than that, or you actually produce actual data. So both of those fall under the characteristics of negotiation. It's great to use with pretty much anyone, right? Pretty much anyone will be receptive to some level of logic and reasoning, but at the same time, you still need to be aware that if they're not listening to what you have to say, you then need to switch. Next is negotiation. We spoke about this before. So negotiation is essentially trading. Specifically useful when you're dealing with someone who's not aligned to what you're doing. If you're dealing with your actual team who's building the product with you, they're generally going to be aligned with you. If you're dealing with a different team or a different organization or an external organization, it's likely that they're not going to be aligned with you, and no amount of convincing them to be aligned with you is going to work, so negotiation is where it comes in. Next is inspiration. So that's inspiring people to get on board, giving talks, leading by example, so actually getting your hands dirty in whatever your team might be doing, and actually getting your hands dirty and showing people how to do things better. That comes underneath inspiration. Asserting yourself, so this is similar to the fighter, so actually staying there and saying, this is what I have to say, and being very persistent about your opinion and making sure you're heard. It's not being demanding, it's just being heard in the room, so it's positive demanding. And then finally, relationships. So this is, again, it's both building the relationship, which is the hygiene and the groundwork, and then it's actually using that relationship, which we spoke about before. Now, negative tactics. I'm going to breeze through this one because we've pretty much spoken about this. This is the negative. He's an awesome negative influencer, and he knows when to use it when he needs to. So we'll use positive. Again, with your villains, they might use positive influencing every so often, but when the time comes, they'll just lay the hammer down either to your face or behind your back. Again, the only way is avoid the negative influencer, avoid the villain, go around them, and do what you can to Basically, the more you interact with them, the more they'll use negative influencing with you, which can affect you in a fairly negative way, specifically when it comes to personal negative actions and attacks, and then administrative negative actions, which you may or may not know about, which can pretty negatively affect your career. So avoid the negative influencer at all costs and just go around them. I personally have, being a bit of a fighter myself, many times have gone head-to-head with a negative influencer, and I always come off second best. It's never worth it. Even if you get what you want, you will have lost something in the process. And overall, ideally, you become the product superstar. People come to you and are asking you questions about your opinion, and you're not just needing to try and influence people. People come to you directly and say, I really like your opinion. Tell me what you have to say. And then they're just going along with that, with what you have to say. And you get to build some really cool products. That's it. Thank you.